Hello, welcome to the Prospect Podcast. I got my co-host here, Coach D. As always, on a Friday, we're ready to roll. We'll talk some recruiting right now with our guest Trenton Luera. Trenton, welcome to the podcast.
Appreciate you having me on.
Trenton, go into your background as a player and recruiting, so everybody can really know, kind of where you come from, how you arrived at what you're doing now, and all that.
Yeah. So brief background. I'm from Fresno, California. I played over there as far as high school goes. Wasn't really like a super stud athlete or anything like that. Was a backup throughout most of my high school career. And so obviously when you're a backup, you don't get a lot of film. And so I had to learn like, how do I get recruited despite not being an amazing athlete or having amazing film or having a ton of stats. Got a couple offers out of high school, even though I had that tough situation. Learned how to use Twitter, how to message coaches, how to talk to them, how to handle the process better, and then ended up going the junior college route. Went to Santa Barbara City College, where I was there because I graduated during COVID. So obviously that whole year was kind of ruined because California junior colleges didn't play. So spent about 2.5 years there, and then learned about the recruiting process even more. Still didn't play a whole lot. My buddy Alex Johnson was ahead of me, and he ended up going to the University of Washington. So when you got that good of a quarterback, it makes it a little bit tougher to get some more film. And so still was able to get recruited despite that. Ended up going to Morningside University, which, if you don't know, is one of the more prestigious NAIA programs. And then went over there, finished out my career, and that was pretty much the brief just there. So.
Okay, and then so fast forward, you're tell me about what you're doing from a recruiting standpoint. And before you go into that, when you said you got offers at a high school, like what do you mean by offers? You mean opportunity to play or scholarship offers?
Yeah, scholarship offers was offered by mostly NAIA schools. Yeah.
How did you get scholarship offers as a backup?
I did start a little bit, but I was benched like multiple times, going back and forth, doing the whole quarterback battle thing.
Got it. Okay, cool. So talk about like how you fast forward, you got into starting this recruiting thing. What's that about? And let me know a little bit more there.
Yeah. So while I was actually playing at Morningside, I started to tweet a little bit because obviously the junior college journey is its own thing, and I was like, oh, I'll talk a little bit about it. I had a unique story, and so I started tweeting, and like one of my first like 10 posts like got 150K views. I was like, people. So I decided to keep tweeting. Ended up people like hearing about my journey, and the one thing that people really liked hearing about was the recruiting stuff. And so I kept talking about it, and then people started to reach out to me saying, do you offer help? And I was kind of just doing my own thing there for a little bit, and then fast forward here, I've been doing this for about a little over 2 years now, and it's kind of been this whole thing where we've got 50K plus followers across a bunch of different platforms. So it's been a blast. But yeah, that's kind of the brief background. Just started posting and turned into what it is now.
Interesting. Cool. So now, as far as you started tweeting about your kind of your journey, and it resonated with people, and people wanted to know more about that. Talk about how you decided then to like take that journey, and then like what are you doing for kids recruiting wise? Like, what are some of the things that you're doing there?
Yeah, definitely. So essentially what we do is I kind of look at it, it's like there's two different sides. There's the education part, because obviously like the recruiting process, especially nowadays, it can be so overwhelming. You got, especially for parents and the kids, like you got to learn the whole social media side. For a kid, you got to learn how to talk to the coaches properly. You got to get educated on how to even stay eligible, all those kinds of things. And then we also help them out in terms of outreach. Outreach is such a big part of the recruiting process. So essentially we help them automate the like intro emails, and which saves them a ton of time and ultimately gets them, more responses because they are able to reach out to more coaches than they probably would be able to on their own as well. So those are like the main two things that we do.
So you take their profile and then you help them automatically email it out and track that, I guess.
Exactly.
Okay. And what have been the results on that?
Yeah. So, I mean, so far we've worked with over 100 families, and we've gotten them a total of over $16 million in scholarship money just offered to them. Average family gets anywhere from a 60 to 70K scholarship on average. That's over 4 years. And then, from as far as distribution between divisions, we've had about 30% of those families go Division 1, and then it's even spread from there as far as Division 2, 3, and A, and so on. So,
Wow.
Right. So over in 2 years, you got 100 guys placed in places. So, um, all right. So I'm a little confused. So how are you guys getting them placed? Like so you're emailing them. So basically, they're kind of, it's like somewhat of a self-service kind of methodology, right? How is that, like, from the time that they come on board with you guys? What's kind of your guys' role, and what's their role with the recruiting process?
mhm. Yeah. So, I mean, once they come on board, really what we do is we do a deeper dive into a couple of things. So we'll take a look at their, like, kind of, I guess I'll just give you a brief look at like what I tell families that we do in the first 7 days. So right when they come on board, they get access to, we have like a full-on classroom with a bunch of different resources and trainings and library section there. So that's obviously all access to them, but obviously they're not going to go through that in the first 7 days.
Right.
We take a look at their X profile. I'm very big on that in terms of, I mean, it's like basically your resume there. And so we make sure that that's correctly set up in terms of their profile picture, their bio, their pin tweet, their post. What are they even posting in the first place? Make sure it's not just a bunch of random retweets or just irrelevant stuff that they don't even need on there. Making sure that they just even have posts in the first place. Then we take a look at their highlights. Those are obviously important as well. Making sure ordering is correct, making sure it's got the right plays in there. There's no bad plays in there as well that may be discouraging things. Once we have those things properly set up, then we get into, we call it our done for you exposure machine, in terms of we set up the outreach stuff. So we send it all. It looks like it's all coming from them. It doesn't look like it's coming from us or our company. We're kind of these like behind the scene kind of ghost people in terms of the coaches don't even know that we're working with them.
Mm-hmm.
And so the emails are sent out in their name, and then the DMs are all sent through their profile. So that way they're able to build that relationship with the coaches. And then basically we get that up and running within the first 7 days. It's all, personalized to a certain coach list. It's the messages are personalized to the coaches and everything. And then pretty much from there, they start getting responses, and then they have us to reach out to in case, they run into some kind of unique situation or need help responding or whatever it might be. Cause it's definitely a lot for, whether it's 40, 50-year-old parent dealing with it and doesn't really know how to kind of help their son do it, or a kid, 16, 17-year-old kid that's still figuring out how to handle this whole thing. So, and then we kind of guide them through with, all kinds of things. Obviously camps is coming around the corner. So we meet with a lot of our families individually and talk with them about how they're setting up their camp schedule, who's actually like legitimately interested in them and is actually worth traveling for versus maybe somebody else that's like probably shouldn't fly across the country for this coach. I don't think he's quite going to be worth it. Your return on your investment of time and money and energy is not going to be worth it there. So that's a couple of things.
That makes sense. So as far as like from your own experience, like what were some of the things that you learned as far as like getting results from a coach's standpoint? Be able to get the results that you guys are saying you get with those kids, the scholarship money. What were some of the things from your experience? Is it really kind of mostly the kind of software based system, or is there things that you're trying to get them guidance wise to do in order to get them there?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, definitely the software side, that helps out a ton. I think all the families see a ton of benefit in that. I mean, that's obviously just removes a lot of the effort and the luck in the process. I think that's such a huge part of it, and for a lot of the success. Sometimes there's been some big parts of just like the guidance part has helped, but both of those things kind of combine together to where, I mean, I kind of look at it as like, obviously you can get exposure, but and you can get in touch with coaches, you get interest, but if it doesn't really move anywhere, if you don't build that relationship, I mean, recruiting is obviously a big relationship game. The coaches have to trust you, then it kind of just stalls out and goes nowhere. And we see that sometimes, like they'll get responses and they're like, oh yeah, this conversation hasn't gone anywhere. And we're like, what's going on? We'll look deeper into it. It's like, hey dude, like this is the clear reason why. And again, it's not their fault, probably need to do a better job of showing them that, but there definitely is this kind of A to Z path, and but both sides help a ton. I think the exposure part definitely helps out because that's probably the bigger piece of the pie for sure.
No doubt about it. And then so when you get like the coaches, right, you basically you plug them into the database, and you have an automated system, both DM and email. And then the athletes are able to, I guess, see who's responding to them, obviously Twitter directly, and then email to get able to track that. What coaches are inundated with information. What separates what you're getting to them over what other people might be doing?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, they're getting absolutely blown up by those messages already. So there's a couple things that we do to separate that. I mean, I will say the first part with the emails, the biggest thing was that we do was we're very comprehensive in terms of making sure that we're getting out of the spam folder. I think that's what a lot of families, if you're doing it yourself, is you're probably using like an @gmail.com domain to like send emails, and that's often going to result in going to spam. There's a bunch of different reasons. I could go into a whole another talk about that, but
right.
That was one of the biggest things that we do. And generally you just want to keep it short because like you said, they're filled with information. They're generally going to, if you catch their eye enough, they're probably going to read your message. They're probably going to check out your film. As long as you're not like hit their minimums in terms of measurables, you're probably going to get that look. Because we can't change that at the end of the day. That's definitely one thing that we have to rely on. So, and then same with the DMs. It's kind of leading with whatever your strengths are in terms of skill set. Hey, if you're 6'5", we're going to use that. If you run a 10-8 100 meter, we're going to use that. We're going to get creative in trying to show coaches the one thing that you can help them benefit in their program, and just at the end of the day, it's not really about getting a response or getting an offer. It's just about, hey, how can we get this coach to watch your film, properly evaluate it? If he likes it, he likes it. If he doesn't like it, then, hey, that's cool. We'll move on to the next guy. And then the other thing is just constantly following up. Like you said, college coaches are filled with information. Stuff is filled up. They're probably not going to see it the first time, probably not the second time. Maybe they'll see it the third time. And then, we're going to keep trying. We've had guys that don't get a response till the seventh time, and they get a response and they finally get an offer on that seventh follow-up. So it's a lot about persistence as well.
Coach, when you when you sit down with a family and you kind of go into that aspect of it, when you're talking outreach, are you kind of tracking these guys in terms of level of competition, like, in terms of level that you're reaching out to certain, or is it just kind of across the board? How do you kind of manage that in terms of when we are out, like reaching out to coaches, or, do you track level wise? How do you do that? How do you handle that?
Yeah. I mean, it'll be one of the first things that we talk about with the family is like, what kind of schools do you want to get recruited by? Of course, everybody says,
oh, of course.
one.
Absolutely. Come on, man.
which I don't blame anyone, because I mean that's everybody's
Oregon, Ohio State, Michigan, Notre Dame, you know what I mean? Like it's all the dream world, 100%.
100%. But usually what we advocate for is, a wide net, because you just want to see who you get responses from. And so we try to go across the board, because that way families see a more realistic viewpoint. If you only get responses from D2 schools, which is awesome in the first place, that you're able to get a couple of responses there, but you're not getting responses from Division I schools. Hey, let's focus a little bit more on this Division II area, maybe
Right.
a little bit FCS schools, and we'll make adjustments accordingly based on the data, is kind of how we try to do things. But we also factor in just what they want from a school and what their needs and goals are.
Right.
As well.
Yeah, I think I think that's great that the way you do that, because I mean, honestly, like, as a high school coach, you talk to some of these guys and it's like, question number one is like, look, do you want to play college football? Right. And it's like, do you even want to? And, yeah, I want to do this. And then it's like, okay, well, look, like, give me a list of schools. Right. And like you said, it's normally, you have some that it's like, okay, well, we're pray to God that this might happen. Right. But highly unlikely, but that's okay, right? Because that's where you start the process along, right? And for the most part, sometimes the disconnect between a parent and a child, right, or a parent and the athlete is there in itself. So it's more like, hey, you need to have a conversation with mom and dad or whoever's in the house, and then create this list of schools, and then we'll kind of go from there. And normally that list, it's very interesting, but I like the fact that you kind of just shoot it all out there, right? In terms of like who you're kind of going after. And then based on the responses that you get, okay, now that to me makes it more real for the parent to see. Cause sometimes, they're in la la land, right? Like they think dreams have like all this craziness of, my kid's a Division I athlete. And really, that's kind of not where we see them tracking. I think the response to what is real, right, what actually comes back, I think kind of puts them in a different mindset as to, okay, maybe that is the level that my son or daughter, right, in terms of whatever, kind of goes with. So that's the excellent way to track it. I see it over and over and over again, where these lists are just like, until they see the real, or until, hey, they go to a camp that's maybe has more of the higher level guys at it, and they don't and nobody talks to them, or they don't get any type of interaction. That's when it becomes real. I think that's one of the hardest things for guys nowadays, is that realization of like, okay, I'm this level and I didn't think I was that level.
100%. I couldn't agree more there. Yeah, I will say I give kudos to a lot of parents. I mean, we talk to a lot of parents on a monthly basis, and a lot of them are pretty realistic, but you're right on point. I mean, yeah, a lot of people just don't realize how good of a player that you need to be to go Division I at the FBS level, or to play at some of those schools. And definitely some people can, and I'm definitely not here to ruin any dreams, but yeah, it's always interesting to see people go through the process, and then they start to have a realization of like, oh, these Division II schools are. Have you heard of this one? This one's pretty cool. Like, I'm actually interested in this one, and see like them kind of grasp like, this is an amazing route to still go get my education, still go play football, and they're still stoked about it, when they decide to do that route. So yeah, couldn't agree there more.
Yeah, and I think that from a recruiting standpoint, the hardest thing is the expectations of it. So when you have kids that come on the platform, are the majority of them just shooting for Division I, and then what's the conversation like, or is there a conversation? Because the software is a big part of what you're doing. So it's once they're in there, there's a self-service part to it. But are there parents that reach out and say, hey, I'm not getting response from these schools? Like, what do you have to kind of gauge them from that standpoint?
Yeah, so we how we operate, we have a phone call. We have a video call with all the families that we work with before we even bring them on. So we always set expectations around that. And especially if we start to hear like, hey, I'm only Division I only want to play Division I FBS football. We usually, we take a look at their film before we even hop on those calls. So we have some sense. Of course, we're not, the best evaluators in the world or anything like that. But we can at least give them a range of where we think, based on measurables and all those kinds of things, So we usually give them some kind of expectation there of like, hey, we think you're probably not a Division I guy. We probably think you're somewhere more around here. If that's something that's a deal breaker, then I'd recommend not working with us. So we're usually able to stomp that pretty quickly and figure out, if they're more open to their spots or, just reset those expectations. But yeah, if families, start to not get responses from schools that they want, we try to figure out what's exactly going on, because it's not always, is it the talent level? Is it, the film? Whatever the situation might be, it's kind of different based on each family, but it definitely does happen. And of course, with all the new recruiting stuff, this last season it was roster spots and being cut, and of course the transfer portal still there and everything. It's continues to get more competitive and things continue to shift. So we try to stay ahead of that curve and continue to keep families in the loop on what's going on and what we're seeing, what we're hearing. So
yeah, I
Coach, go ahead, Dave.
No, yeah.
I'm curious, what like at what part of the process do you see majority of your guys that come and kind of utilize your program? Like at what age are they at? Are they, sophomores? Are they juniors? Are these guys that are kind of like going into senior year and, hey, I don't have anything? So like kind of where within the process do you kind of get majority of your clientele?
Yeah. So we get most of our families usually during football season. I think that's when it's like top of mind for most people.
Right.
So yeah, most of them are juniors and seniors, and they usually have tried some stuff or doing some things, and they're just not getting much traction. That's usually where most people are at. I will say, especially because a lot of my stuff is on Twitter. Usually those families are farther along than I have a pretty big following on like Instagram. Those families are a little bit more behind because they're not even on the right platform usually. Like there's kind of that bias there a little bit, but yeah, we'll get anywhere ranging. Sometimes we'll get people that are like, relatively in a decent position. But
they just want more.
Yeah, exactly. They just want more. So that's kind of like, it's kind of on that spectrum, but usually they've got some traction. They're just not getting as much as they want.
You could kind of look at it like they've kind of basically tried to do it on their own, right? And they might have had some responses, but it's kind of not exactly what they're looking for. So now, they see you and they're like, all right, well, this can maybe put me over the edge and get me exactly kind of what I'm really looking for. Is that kind of like, because that's kind of like how I'm seeing it. Is that kind of, am I kind of on par with it?
I would say so. Yeah. They're just wanting more. They're just trying to like expand or, whatever the certain is. Yeah, it definitely ranges, but yeah, usually they're just trying to get, more interest, and they're trying to find, different schools, and yeah, each person has a different goal in mind, but something around there. Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah. No doubt about it. As far as where you kind of see recruiting growing, like what and how it might affect what you're doing. Talk a little bit.
Yeah, 100%. It's a crazy world, as we all know. But yeah, I see the Division I FBS becoming. I mean, I think we all do is becoming more of a professional game. I mean, I think that our outreach strategy is very effective. I think that at the FBS level, it's less effective. I mean, you could chalk that up to a lot of different reasons, just in terms of like, it's not like kids that can play Division I FBS football in the first place. But I think that's the one thing that'll definitely affect. And it'll just become harder and more competitive as we go along. If I haven't been paying attention to too much of the whole house stuff on what's going on with the NCAA, but if they decide to continue to cut roster spots at the lower levels like they originally were planning to, then that could continue to affect things and make it harder to get recruited. All those kinds of things definitely play a factor, and just, I mean, they're essentially cutting supply while demanding stays the same. That's not a good thing for recruiting. So I do just see it's going to continue to get harder. It's going to continue to get more competitive. people are gonna put more effort into the recruiting process, and so it's going to become a competition of trying to make yourself stand out and show coaches what you got, which I think our stuff will remain effective, but definitely trying to continue to find best practices and refine our stuff. Luckily, we have some good data on things, so we'll continue to use that. But yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, the marketplace changed a lot. Do they even ever ask you about NIL or anything like that?
We don't do NIL. I'm not an expert in NIL, so I never give recommendations, but a couple families will ask a little bit. I don't say usually too much on it.
Right. Yeah. It seems like most of it is the kind of the automation process that makes you guys really effective in that mass reach out and customization as far as to the coaches, but that being able to reach out to as many places as they can to get them as many places as they can. Do you, so what they're using that program, do you have different levels to your program? Like, do you have a level where people are just kind of in that the software system, and then you have a consulting part, or you just kind of try to stay focused and give them the information, let them use the system?
Yeah. So we do have different levels depending on like what they want. So we try to customize it pretty heavily to what the family wants and what they need. Most people, whenever they hear about the automated outreach stuff, they always are like, "Yeah, I want that." That's the one thing I definitely want.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, we definitely have different. I mean, we have some families that won't even use the automated outreach, and they just want, hey, they're just like, I just want access to you guys, and that's pretty much all I need. So it definitely depends, and we try to customize it that way. They're not getting any leftover stuff that they're not going to use. So.
Well, that makes a ton of sense. It really does. Well, glad we have you. Derek, do you have any other questions?
No, I think you handled it pretty well. Like, Coach, no, I think it's awesome. You know what I mean? Like I said, everybody's kind of trying to find a way to help all these guys out. And, I think by the way that you guys do it, it's kind of, you kind of put it in their hands, right? Like it's like, hey, let us clean this up and then we'll kind of go from here. And look, if you have questions, it is what it is, right? So the simplicity of it, I think, is what will separate, because some of these, it's just like so intense in terms of certain things and whatnot. But look, we all know that the recruiting world, it's an insane world and it's an imperfect world, right? And you could do, quote, everything the right way and still not get what you want. So I think the openness and kind of communication and the honesty up front kind of needs to be, talked about with the parent and the athlete themselves so that they kind of really do understand that it's an imperfect science and it's never going to be right. And it doesn't matter because at the end of the day, like there's probably a right fit for you in terms of a school that you can go to, but you also have to be willing to kind of, up and down with that, right? Like there's some massaging that has to happen in terms of give and take. Right. So it might not be perfect, but it works at the end of the day. But at the end of it, it is what it is. And, if you want to get where you can go, you got to work at it. So it doesn't matter how it works, but appreciate you taking the time, man. It's really awesome. If there's anything we can ever do for you, let us know. But we'll talk to you soon. Appreciate you.
Yeah. Appreciate you having me on.
Thanks so much, Coach. We'll see you soon.
See ya.
Take care.
All right. All right, we got a little recruiting on Fridays. So
different.
What's interesting. Oh yeah. Well, I think with there's two ways to handle it. I think. Well, there's a few ways to handle it, but I think the big part that they do that I think there is a need for is that customized reach out on a level that's mass, right? So it's customizing it. It's customizing it. Let's say they're reaching out to several hundred coaches or whatever.
Yeah, that's what hooked me with that. The automation of getting it out to the masses the right way, right? Like that's kind of part of it, right?
The negative part on it is and this is as I see it, but the negative part as it is, it's still you reaching out. who nobody knows about to begin with. So
it's like basically a cold call with a non, like,
well,
you're just
it's let's say you're a high school player nobody knows about, and that you're reaching out. Now the other stuff they have around it probably is pretty helpful. That's why he has, like, he really has a lot of educational components to help them with the
Right.
self-service, which is good.
Yeah, I like that part. I thought that was
Yeah.
cool too. Like, I'd like to see what's in that classroom that they get
The hard
access to.
part, yeah, I mean, 100 people in 2 years, that means you don't you had 100 people come onto the system that landed somewhere. It's like um, that's probably hard to quantify, but what is interesting is the overall software component. I thought the software component of it is really interesting, and then the other thing I think is I'd be curious, because obviously he wouldn't be able to answer that either, but I'd be curious, like, if we had a coach on that side that received their stuff, from the
Right.
kids, do they know the difference? Do they know if it's automated or not? Do they care? Right? Because
Yeah, absolutely.
because they probably just have well, if they just have GAs filtering through it anyway, the reach, it's hard to get them anyway, so mass reach probably helps. It's like a needle in a haystack to begin with. So
Correct.
so you're trying to reach more needles, and hopefully you get a shot, right? So I just think that that part is really interesting. The hard part, I still think the hard part through all of this is, and I think in recruiting in general, which makes it really, really difficult in this era, is you probably have several companies obviously doing that kind of component. So you get the stuff all comes in. There's still like this, like, it all ends up keeps coming back to them seeing you, right? Because and that's the one part that, like, we could the difference between AI for an accountant, right? Let's say, for example, like, Derek's an accountant and Derek crunches numbers. Well, I go create an AI system that can crunch the numbers better than Derek can. I could kind of replace part of what he does, right? In recruiting, until there's actually a system where that information comes in, right? Like that, Derek reaches out to me, I get the information. I have some automated way to evaluate that film right away, like where it scans the huddle film and on that person and could say, yeah, this guy reaches my parameters based on all the data. Until that happens, it's still an eyeball thing, right? It's still me as the coach looking at it and saying, hey, this guy fits my profile. This guy doesn't fit my profile. I need to see him in camp. I don't need to see him in camp. And it's still a difficult thing to get around unless, you obviously have some extreme measurables, right? Height, side, speeds, or whatever type thing.
Well, that's what I'm wondering this. So let's say you create something, right? And all right, now this obviously, but I mean, this is one way to do it, right? Like, if you could ever, like, if you could, which I'm sure you could. So a film gets brought in, or a film gets sent in, right? And right away, like, all right, it's positional, right? So I'm not, okay, hey, he's a wideout. Okay, he's under 6 foot. See ya. Cut them all out. Every film that comes in under 6 foot, we're not even looking at, because I don't want any receivers under 6 foot.
Correct.
How do you take that, wash it right out, right? All right, 40 time. All right, he's a wideout. We're only taking guys that are in the 4.5 to 4.7 range. Okay, everybody that's not gets wiped out. I wonder if you could create a filtration system.
I think they
like
have
that. I'm sure. I mean, if you think about it, I mean, it's so.
They do, but
it's so kind of wild, like that, because like the formality of it, you know what you mean? Like the software, you'd have to have your height, weight, and all that stuff like formally in it, which I think his program does for you, right? Because it formalizes how you send out certain things with that mass, right? So that's a good thing. But then, like, you're looking at guys that, like, maybe they're just football players, and that's totally killing that whole aspect of it, right? So
I think at the highest level,
it don't matter.
I think at D2 and D3, and maybe some of the FCS, you have to be careful of filtering out a guy who might be slightly off on the measurables, but is a great football player.
100%.
Think what has happened, if you
that's what I meant. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
I think that's happened at Division I. If you really look at it, I mean, there are exceptions, right? You show up at camp,
very few, Dave, but very few. Like, I'm saying, where are those?
Let's say you're 5'8", you showed up at camp and you ran a really good 4. I'm saying you ran a 4.45. Okay, and they're like,
I prayed for it. I prayed for it every night.
Right. So
I've been asking God for that shit since 2002, dude. Like, God damn.
Maybe a few years though, reverse engineer. We could go back in time and you could redo it all.
I just want to run down on kickoff one more time.
And you could choose, Derek. You could choose one skill set to improve on yourself. If you could choose one.
Oh, that's a loaded question, dude. That's a loaded question.
You have to choose the one. You have to choose wisely. But let's say you go and you run a 4.45, right? On their watch, which means he's short.
Key verbiage there, on their watch.
On their watch, he's short, but he's super fast. Okay, I see him run routes. He's you're like a Wesley Welker, right? All right,
nice.
I end up offering that one guy, right? The rest of the guys, I think you could do that with camp, right? The rest,
absolutely.
You don't have to worry about it with the rest of the guys. You could just filter at Division I.
But I also yes, absolutely.
Guy shows up at camp is phenomenal. That doesn't fit anything.
Done deal. Like, here you go. And I feel like as a staff, you get kind of like, maybe you get like one of those a cycle, right? Like, hey, this is our he might make it thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, whatever.
He's just so damn good. He's just so
like
good.
or hey, there's just something about this kid that like everything, like I don't know how much this is starting to play into it too, but at the end of the day, I still think you need locker room guys, right? Like, you need guys that can keep a locker room together in some way, shape, or form and manage so many of these personalities that are now, when this guy's bitching that he doesn't have enough money, who's the guy that can come over and calm him down so that it doesn't become something crazy? Bro,
there's not many anymore.
Dave, I was having this.
There are. I would say on the best teams there are, even still.
And I don't know. I think it was because I just heard on Urban Meyer's podcast with Tim, Mark Ingram, right? And they were talking to Vrabel, and Urban kept saying that those Patriot teams, like, that's what made them good, was those guys that could control the locker room. And the expectation was, and look, whatever they did outside of it always came back to like, hey, this has to come first. And like you said, there's not many of them, because I was having this conversation with the coach the other day of like, when's the last time you were around like a true captain? Like, one of those guys that just everybody respected. They said the tough things, like that type of stuff. So I think that's, I don't know. I really don't know how many of them there are. And look, let me preface this. It's really hard to be a leader. Like, it's hard, right? Because you're not always going to be liked. Sometimes you're going to have to toe that line between, oh, well, you're just doing that for the coaches or whatever that shit is. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's really fucking hard, especially in nowadays where everybody questions everything and respect factor is lessened now, I think. Like, and for one, like, I know at least in our heyday, if you said something back to a captain, like, there was going to be some issues. You know what I'm saying? Like, there was a physical aspect that was probably going to happen, whether it was on the field or in the locker room. But I think it's really hard to manage or have those guys that are in your locker room that can control and police all of that stuff to make it work so that, guys, like, we all have a common goal of we want to win, right? Or I question this, is that even the goal now of guys playing college football? Do they even give a shit about winning? Or do they just want whatever it's about them?
I think a lot of it depends on the place now and maybe the coaching culture. So, like, you know, at Ohio State,
I was gonna say, shoot me an example. Like, shoot me an example. Like, what college do you think that matters more?
My dog went crazy downstairs. It's pretty funny. So so I would say like Ohio State, right? So let's use Ohio State as an example. If you were to use Ohio State and say, do they have a pretty good culture? I would say yes, right? Because it passed from Urban Meyer to Ryan Day. There's some level of consistency there as far as philosophy. I mean, Day's different, but there's some carryover, and it's obviously they've had a lot of
Day's
success.
Definitely different.
Yes, but he started at a good spot, right? So he's been able to continue to elevate it. He doesn't seem to worry. Like, it's almost like he has such
He blocks out the noise.
He kind of blocks out the noise, and
he's the ultimate. I think.
Like, he's just focused on coaching, and I think he puts the guys in place to handle all that. And I don't think he has to. I think he's motivator and all that kind of stuff, but I don't think he has to.
I think sometimes he comes across like he's not, and I think that kind of pisses off.
I think he's got guys in place. I think he's done a good job with that.
I think the one guy that totes the rock for him in terms of like staff is Hartline, like his OC, right? So I think Brian Hartline does a shit ton.
He's an Ohio State guy.
And he's an Ohio State guy. And, you know, I mean, look, I don't think he's going to be there very long. I think he's out.
That. I think you have more of that now at the highest, on the best teams, because the head coach,
he's got to do so much other shit, dude.
He's going to spend time recruiting his own roster. You know what I mean? Like, making sure guys
he's got to be
financially and all those things.
Dude, so it is so like, look, there's no. Who was talking to me? I was talking to.
I mean, Division I is highest level is very, very different.
So different
than the other levels.
I don't think people understand that, and he just just referenced it, right? Like, Division I is becoming professional. Like, it is a business at this point where, I mean, look, you're seeing guys hired.
Meaning
the power, that's what I was going to bring up. I was going to bring that up too. There's now a separation between, like, the bigs of the world and the top guys and everybody else. I mean, like, for me, you want to, and I don't know, I think the cutoff, I don't know where it kind of is and isn't. I'm sure we could go through a list, and this would be a good podcast, or a pretty cool podcast for us. We could go through however many Division I football playing schools there are. What is there, like 100 and so, over 100? And we could say Power 4, big, like, name might be in a Power 4 conference.
60 of them. That's it. They're in a
maybe. Right, and some kind of like fluctuate here or there. It's like baseball.
It is
in terms of players.
Maybe even more like almost like
you know what? It's
European
like soccer,
where
it's like soccer where you go from whatever level.
The second level is still a pro level, but
it's not
paid well.
Yeah,
you might be making $500K. The highest level, they're making buku, right?
Yeah.
Right. So I don't. And then they have a third level, which would be like, the group of whatever they call it now, which is like the third level of pro. And then FCS might be like, I mean, if you use baseball is a good analogy. The only thing that's different about baseball, in my opinion, is at the AAA level and AA level, you don't have the facilities that these guys have.
You don't have shit. Yeah, but neither do some of these guys.
No, but I'm saying, like, if you're So like let's say Ohio State was considered AAA. Like I think it's higher than that. Like I think it's like that, you have the Premier League and then you have the league right below it. Though if you've ever seen those stadiums and the level below,
awful, bro.
they're unbelievable. The level below Premier League still 50,000 seats.
Oh yeah, for those guys, absolutely. But
it's
like
just
you
in
want
a
to talk
smaller
like
town. You know what I'm
right,
saying?
you want to talk like single A baseball. I mean,
Yeah,
dude,
they
you're
don't have
talking
the
like
facilities. Yeah.
like look, there's like 3 of those stadiums in Jersey alone that we drive by all the time, and you're like, I mean, it's nice, but
that's
shit. There's one in Lakewood.
That's where soccer.
Yeah, but that's because I think soccer generates more revenue on the no matter what. You know what I mean? Because it always comes down. Like, look, and you want to talk about if you want to talk about numbers in that regard.
Yeah, maybe more than NFL, right? Like so
soccer absolutely
generating more than NFL in Europe. I don't know. I really don't know enough about it.
Maybe when you start breaking down the euro in terms of dollars and all that kind of shit. But I mean, remember soccer. I don't know. I just think there's a lot more. Obviously, like, look, football is different because it took over God's day. Like like football, the NFL runs Sunday. And they developed a niche on a market that's very much USA only based. And now with them trying to branch out, right, internationally, and and I don't know, it's very difficult to see it go international because the sport itself is expensive, right? We talk about this all the time, like to outfit every single person and equip them the right way, you're talking $500 easy, right? Like, and that's lowballing the shit out of it. It's a game that you have to practice a lot more than you play, right? So internationally, that's like, I don't like really like, I just want to play games, and especially young. To develop it from young kids, like kids just want to play games. So to have to teach them to practice, you got to trick it. So I don't know internationally if it works like that, look, you can go play a game in London and Germany and Mexico City. And, I mean, look, I think they're doing a great job with that. All right. That's pretty cool. But now you're talking to sacrificing like the actual guys that are making money. Like there's a lot of shit that goes into traveling to London for a week or Germany for a week. Like that has a huge play on the actual season. And they've already kind of expanded it into, an extra game in the year. And look, at the end of the day, like if you ask the players, I guarantee you they would eliminate preseason and say, we don't want to do it. It's just another moneymaker for the NFL, right? Like that's why they continue to do that. But if you think about an NFL season and how long it actually is, right? Like, and the wear and tear that goes into it, there's no wonder that the rate of being in the NFL is only for what it is. And, so you kind of look at all of those things that, why would I play this game where I can't play it for very long, right? Whereas soccer, you still have 50-year-olds running around out there on the soccer field.
So I want to read this to you because it's interesting. So the top soccer premier league programs, our revenue is like just Man U is 837 million, Manchester United 770 million, Arsenal 716, so on and so forth. The top NFL, the teams average 400 million. You have the Cowboys that are making north of that. They're like,
yeah, they're different.
So they're slightly under. They're in line with Premier Soccer, but maybe a little less. Top college athletic programs. This is going to blow your mind. Okay. So I didn't separate out football, but overall athletic programs. But obviously, football and basketball are the vast majority of these programs. So in 2023, Ohio State did 280 million in revenue. Texas A&M 279, Texas 271, Michigan 230, Georgia 210, LSU 200. What's crazy is they're making in revenue like only half of what the NFL's making and maybe a third of the Premier League. It's so much money, the college athletic program. So how about the valuations? This is crazy. So the NFL team valuation, Cowboys are 10 billion. It might be more now, but this is like 2023 data. Rams are 7.6, Patriots are 7.4, Giants are 7.3, so on and so forth. The college athletic programs, Ohio State is valued at $1.3 billion.
Yep.
Texas, $1.28 billion. Texas A&M, 1.26, Michigan, 1.06, Alabama, 978 million.
I wouldn't doubt it.
That's like, it's almost like a parallel. It's lesser talent-wise. Because the talent is not at the same level as the NFL. But the overall amount of money they're making is very close and may eventually be on par, right? Like that's the crazy part.
I think it's a lot, like I said, but I also think that the way, I mean, this is just like, if you think about like college football in the South, that is their NFL team, right? Like, and I'll stand on, like, you know what I mean? Like, we live in an area of the country where it's pro sports, right? Like, we have two of everything here, right? Like, we got two NFL teams, we got two NFL teams, two NBA teams, right? 3 friggin' hockey teams. Okay. Like, we have it all, right? Like, but it's all pro sports. Other states, areas of the country, they have nothing else other than, Alabama football or whatever, even the pro sport markets that are around certain areas. You could probably argue that Duke and North Carolina basketball, college-wise, is way bigger than the Charlotte Bobcats. Like, you know what I mean? Like, in some of those, now it might not, I'm just saying, like, that's where I think the separation is, and it's different, is, those teams over there too, like, that's all they know. Like, that's what they do is soccer, right? Like, and the amount of games, like, I literally just heard Julian Edelman reference it. And he was talking about how he went to a Premier League game and like, people are just, they're so in tune with the game. Like, they're watching the game. Right. And like, to a point where Julian Edelman's like, I'm trying to get a beer and it's like nobody's around because they're just watching the game. Like, they actually care about the sport. Over here, it's more of like, hey, the bells and the whistles of it, where, hey, I need a shirt. Okay, here's money, right? Or, hey, I need more. Like, that goes into it more, where I think the money just gets crazy. You know what I'm saying? Like, I would love to see like the ticket sales in regards to, like, and I don't know how big colleges work. Like, if you're a student at Georgia, do you get a free ticket to the game or do you have to pay for the game? Like, you know what I mean? Like, how does that shit work? Like, University of Michigan.
You pay. They all have lotteries and stuff. So
see, that shit's wild. Like, really? Like, you're making students pay to, like, they already pay how much to go to school there. Like, now I pay to go to a game? See, that would piss me off.
Yeah, you pay. You pay, dude. The student
section,
it's probably less money than the other sections, but
I mean, I think about like Krzyzewskiville, a Duke game. These dudes are camping out, waiting in line to get their tickets. You know what I mean? Or to get into the building. Like, that's the level of dedication. Like, and people obviously will pay, right? I just saw a little bit of a thing where the division, like, the lacrosse, the women's lacrosse, I guess their NCAA tournament is somewhere else and it's hard to get to. So, like, a lot of people like weren't there to support them because it was like hard to get to in whatever way. And the men's are somewhere else. But look, at the end of the day, I think it comes down to like revenue and all those kind of things. But like I was saying, some of these places only have their colleges to support. You know what I mean? So, what professional in Ohio, like, you're going to go to an Ohio State game because, yeah, I guess you could Cleveland Browns, but like, really? Like, would you rather go to an Ohio State game or a Cleveland Brown game? Like, you know?
There's no doubt. I mean, I think that is you're right. In certain places, the college is the pro team. And
Alabama.
yeah, I mean, there's no, I mean, there's nothing. So they
Nebraska.
are and
like I could go on and on.
That's what I thought was similar to the European model because
correct.
Because you have the big pro team like Manchester U, obviously, that are in Manchester, but in your hometown of, let's say, Butler, okay, you have a pro team, believe it or not, in soccer, right? You have a pro team. Everybody goes to watch that game, and everybody in the town surrounding it, right? So they'll get 40,000 people to a game, but there's only 20,000 people living in Butler. You know what I'm saying? So everybody from around the area comes in to watch that game, and it's that's what a college town is like, right? So a college town, it's
University of Michigan, right? Like, just look at the size of their stadium.
Yeah, 100,000.
Penn State. Probably one of the better examples. Penn State. Like, I would love to know what they're, I mean, they're a state school, right? Like, or it's just college football, man. It's a business, and I just hope that it doesn't start to become like too much of. I think it's already at the highest level. I think that player coach connection is kind of like, now with like even hiring GMs, like, how's that going to work? Are they just going to go to say, like, the receivers coach and say, hey, here's the targets we're going after. Like, go talk to these guys. Like, your input doesn't mean shit.
Did you see the video of where Dan Lanning jumped in the pool with the player that committed?
Yeah, and then the kid decommitted 14 days later.
Is that crazy? That's the whole thing to me.
That's the shit that pisses me off. Like, not pisses me off, but – and look, that kid has the right to do that, but here's the extent that this guy is going to get
can you see your – like, listen, I consider myself, like, players – I have always got along well with players.
Yeah, I think I'm that.
Yeah, I think you're that too. Like, I always got along with them. I've always understood their side of things.
Yes.
As a coach, a college coach, I think you almost have to be willing to just swallow a little bit of your soul to get the players you want, because you have to.
Absolutely, dude.
You have to do things like that.
Jim Harbaugh, right? Sleeping over kids' houses. Like you know what I'm saying?
Pride is not important. You don't need pride. Like,
it's not. Well, also, if it's not about
like it's such a business that you don't even care.
Like that doesn't. That shouldn't bother you. Like
like he's a really respected guy. I thought it was pretty cool.
And he's been. I love that kind. I like really
cool. But now he got.
I love that kind of shit.
Like, he potentially gets burnt by it. Like, I just think that part of it.
Right, that sucks. And you have to, like you said, you have to swap. But I think if he just goes,
it's hard to come in the office. Could you imagine
going in the office after that?
Like, you have to be able to laugh at yourself. I mean, that's
where I was going with it. Like, you have to be. And look, you
Coach have Palazzo, you can't take yourself seriously.
Coach Palazzo from Montclair State, I think, said it the best when we had him on the show the other day, especially for being at the level that he's at. He said, like, guys, and you heard him. You guys could go back and we could cut up the clip if you want to. And he said, look, I can't get salty when a kid doesn't want to come to Montclair State because he wants to go somewhere bigger. Like, I can't take that personally, whatever. You know what I mean? Like, or if he says he's coming to Montclair State and then gets a legit opportunity to go somewhere else and go somewhere else. Like, how am I can't now take that and get us. I think
it's another like jump in a pool as like, hey, I got my guy.
Well, I think it's like, well, now what he jumped in the pool because he was excited that the kid committed. Is that what is that? Oh, I think so then what the hell? Like, to me, that's all right. We were pumped. All right. The kid made a different decision. I jumped in a pool. I think his response to that, if he now goes and owns it and be like, you know what? The next kid that commits, I'll jump in a pool too. You know what I mean? Like, I also think he's that type of coach, like kind of like Dabo was a little bit, right? Like he was that kind of guy that would do some shit like that or whatever. Like I don't see Urban Meyer like going to jump in a pool. Like, you know what I mean? I'm sure as hell wouldn't have seen Nick Saban go and like jump in a pool. I don't see like Greg Schiano go and jump in a pool. I think guys just approach it different. Would
be like, I ain't jumping in that pool. You want to come play for me, or you don't want to come play for me?
Right. I think Jim Harbaugh would jump in that pool.
I agree.
He's now. I think guys like that are just a little different, right? Like, even look at your NFL coaches. Some guys have that cool vibe to them, right? I think Mike Tomlin is the ultimate example of like guys respect him for who he is. He's real, but he's also. But I'll tell you, I bet you Mike
Tomlin would jump in the pool.
I'm not saying he would. I'm saying
he does. The guy who was probably the LA Rams guy probably would.
McVay.
I
think Mike McDaniel from the
Dolphins would. Gruden would.
Dude, have you
jump in the pool?
Have you watched any of Gruden's unboxing? Any of his unboxings? Bro, somebody's got to teach that dude how to open a box before he loses a finger. Like, how fucking hard is it to like use a box cutter to open tape? Like, I almost feel bad. I'm like, dude, that knife is way too easy. I'm like, that knife is way too big, bro. Like, we don't need to. I'm like, I get it. You're an NFL coach. We're like, holy shit, dude. Like,
have you never unboxed anything before?
Like, well, that's what I'm saying. It probably went through such a process that he had so many staffers open boxes that they're like, hey, you're wearing this shirt today. Hey, here's your shoes. Should we take them? Like, some of these guys can't do the day-to-day around the house type shit, which is so wild to me. But I'm telling you, dude, that, right? He's created a monster with that, dude. Like, he gets like a gazillion boxes a day now. Like,
Dave Portnoy basically said, listen, you're going to do what I did during COVID. When he was
but that was so fun too. I used to watch all of his shit too, dude. Like, I think that stuff's so cool.
Then he started getting all these crazy things coming to him, dude, and he couldn't keep up with it. He couldn't keep up with it.
All he had to do was tell, like, hey, I really love swords. Then before that, 1,000 fucking Japanese swords and shit.
Yes, like, he was getting all kinds of crazy shit.
It's just, that stuff's cool. But I like that. Like, I don't know. It's just, look, you can name in your entire career, you can name coaches that you were like, look, I'll ride or die for this guy, but this guy can go off, right? And to me, it took a couple of years sometimes to realize, like, hey, I wasn't a fan of this coach. I know why he did it the way he did it, but he could have done this. You know what I mean? And I've also, like, taken a real, like, deep dive over the years into how I coach and all those types of things. Like, I'm pretty sure that I have a really good grasp of, you know, who I am as a coach, why I am the way I am as a coach. And it's also one of those, like, take it or leave it. Like, this is what you're going to get. Like, I'm very open about how it is, you know. Obviously, I'll tell you, it's changed a lot from the time I started coaching, and this will be going into year 16. Like, I know the world of coaching has changed, and a lot of people want to say kids have changed and all that. Kids haven't changed, dude. Like, they still want structure and they want to be coached hard, right? It's parents that get in the way of that. Correct. And like, oh, well, these kids are always on their phone. Well, they were raised on a phone. Just like you were raised to be outside and do all that shit. That's how they're raised. So adapt or die. And those guys have kind of figured it out. I also think that they're in my eyes, the best staffs are ones where each coach has their own niche into how they coach. We have an overall standard that is expected, but the way that you get your guys there is different for everybody, right? And I really do feel like as an assistant coach, my job is to bring the head coach solutions, not problems. and to follow the overarching standard of the program and push that no matter what my personal views are. If they don't align with the head coach, then I'm probably not on the right staff to begin with. And that's a problem. You know what I mean? Because when an assistant coach is saying stuff that the head coach isn't preaching or is opposite of what that is or any of those types of things, dude, now you have a problem like internally. So if you're not all aligned, man, like I don't know what I don't know what you think you're going to accomplish, but it sure as hell isn't going to be consistency in winning.
Sure, that makes sense. I mean, when you're building a program, you need to be going in the right direction.
And I think that's something that's really, really hard for a head coach, because not only are you have the responsibility of a program, but you have the responsibility of how many grown-ass men that are your assistant coaches or your staffers that have to be aligned with every single thing you're doing. And then the constant turnover of how it goes and how it works. It's why I think the best guys delegate really, really well, and they trust in what it is. I hired you for a reason, right? Go and do your job. The micromanagers, it's not that I felt uncomfortable around micromanagers, but it made me work a different type of way when I knew that that guy was literally going to be looking over my shoulder. It almost felt like you weren't trusted. And that I didn't like, I just couldn't get, I felt like I couldn't get the best out of myself when there was a micromanager around me. The best guys I've been around allowed me to do what I do well, and they allowed me to be who I was. And I think part of that too is in the interview process, like, don't pretend to be something you're not, because then if you're hired because of that, you have to now be that. And if that's not who you are, right, then what are we doing? You know what I mean? Like, that's why I never understood why people would get nervous in an interview. Like, dude, you're just going in there and being who you are. And if you're not, then you're like, you know, you're going to have to pretend for a lot of the time. And I don't know why guys would do that. So,
well, I think that's a big problem in the interview process. Well, you know what it is too? It depends on the interviewer, right? So,
well, you got to ask the right questions, right?
Interviewer is not
you.
The interviewer is not interested in like there are people that interview that are really just interested in the fluff, you know. So when they interview, they ask questions and they end up choosing a person that doesn't like is just pretending because they're pretending. You know, I don't know if that makes sense.
Right. No, that makes complete sense, dude.
Like it's important. The same as a company. Like if I was like, for example, if I was to like interview you for a job and I said, you know, we got 50 people working for us, blah, 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 and you know, blah, blah. It wasn't really true. And you joined the company thinking it was a certain thing. And then it wasn't, right. Like, you'd be like, wait a minute.
I'm going to leave. Yeah. I'll be like, wait, I didn't sign up for this shit. Like, I thought you said it was this. Oh, well, you know, we kind of like, dude, don't do that. Don't waste both of our times.
Right.
Right. Like, just allow, like, be who you are. Like, I compare it a lot to like, I compare it to dating. Like, dude, like, just be you. Right. And look, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And like, why do you want to waste somebody's time? Why do you want to spend, like, it's like trying to fit, what is the saying? You're trying to fit a square peg into a round hole.
Yes.
Like,
it's definitely like, that's a pretty good example in the sense that, you know, like you've probably gone on a date with a girl that in the past is like really good looking. Right. And you're like, you want her to like you. So, you know, want you. And you just realize you're on the date and you're like, wow, this person is really just like, she looks great.
Like, you're like, but I'm talking to a fucking wall.
or she could be smart and you realize that like she feels like she's doing you a favor, right? Like,
yeah, I'm not in that world. I'm not in that world.
Yeah, I've been in that world. So
I could only, and look, I could only imagine what it's like now with like this interactive dating shit where like everything's through an app. Like, you know, you used to just roll up and be like, yeah, you want a drink? Like, now it's like, we're going to meet on a date. And like, here's your profile. Like
you meet a girl out if you were out and then you go on a date and you're like, whoa, this is a radically different human being, right? So
yeah, you're like, wow, you were different when you were 7 shots deep.
yeah, yeah, it's totally, which is true too. Like that happens. So it's
You're like, wait, you told me you were in school and you were graduated. Oh no, I work at Domino's.
and that's, I think that's a difficult part, and that's difficult in
Shit.
in interviewing and getting people to
I
jobs.
I don't think I've
And I
tried
think
to.
coaches,
Oh my God.
head coaches have a problem, probably much harder at the higher levels. Okay, than even in high school. The problem is you need people, right? So you want
Just need bodies.
You want to convince a guy to come on board. So then what ends up happening? Are you
It's
actually
so hard? It's
are you
so
asking
hard.
the tough questions? And then at the higher level, you need lots of people, and
Ugh.
and
Ugh.
and you need some people to take some crappy jobs, right? So
It's like, dude, and here's the thing, like, you need that guy. So do you fluff that, right? Like, hey,
right.
sometimes you're gonna have to paint the fucking field. Like, you're gonna have to make sure all the go routes are plugged in and we have everyone. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and I see it, because this younger generation of coaches, they don't want to do that shit. They want to come in, they want to call plays, they want to, like, all this stuff. Like, they're not willing. Some are not willing to kind of go through that level of, you know what I mean? Like, you start here and you work your way up. I get it.
World where
Dave, I get it.
Listen,
it's
look, the guy we had today. Okay, if you were to ask me if this guy would be able to have a business in recruiting 10 years ago, I would be like, no credibility, didn't really play that much, wasn't that successful on the field. Who the hell's going to listen to him?
Right.
Dude, but nowadays you make videos and you can get the information that's necessary.
100%.
And he developed a software program, which is smart of him to be able to, and now he's able to have some success with that. That to me is complete, like, foreign. That's of the way the world is going. You could get the information that you need, but it's foreign to a lot of people. Like, people are having to adjust to that part of the process. Like honestly, if I was hiring a guy now, college, high school is different. College, I would like to know what they know about AI and being able to make their job more efficient.
That's where I wouldn't even be whatever, because I'd be like, I don't know shit, but I'm willing to figure it out if you want me to. You know what I mean? Like, because I'm still not sold on it. To me, I've always won with people. It's about people. And
you're gonna no, but your background people are gonna need to have it. Your background, your people, not just analyzing recruits and filtering, but trying to get through mass amount of work in an efficient manner.
Right. Like, you're gonna have to know it, because if not, you're not gonna be able to physically do what you need to do. Like, I get that, right? Because you're gonna get at the highest levels. I can't even imagine how many, like, DMs. Like, let's reference Drew for a minute, right? Safeties coach at Rutgers. And that's let's say, that's a Big Ten school, but it's, we'll say maybe they're right inside the 60 that we were talking about being up here, maybe, right? I can't even imagine the number of DMs he gets a day, or huddle videos a day, or coaches reaching out, hey, I got this kid. How do you filter all of that without AI? One, back in the day, you probably
already have something.
I'm saying, I'm sure they do, but I could just, if you now can't take all of that, delegate it to, say, your own personal assistant or whatever, or a GA, and say, hey, look, here's what what you're looking for. Give me the 10 best guys, and then I'll look at 10 rather than 500. You know what I mean? Like, there needs to be that type of system, but I just can't imagine. Whereas,
think about the daily tasks. So I'm going to go to operations sides of it. What's the budget we have for NIL? What's the budget we have for travel? What's the budget we have for putting guys on the road, right? The more efficiently and effectively you could do that,
absolutely,
the better you are. So, like, if you're a young guy and you come in and you could let's say you could develop your own little scripts that help you with those things. Think of how
and that's
more.
where I think, but I think
how
that's
effective you'll
also
be.
I think that's also part of the damn job. Is like, because now, what's your ultimate goal? Do you always want to be an assistant coach? Do you want to become a coordinator? Are you looking for a head coach? And if you are, what level? What level do you want to hit? Are you an NFL guy? Do you want to stay in college? Like, what do you want to do with your world? And then that's where you develop and formally, like, look, I've been putting it together for the 16 seasons I've been coaching, right? Is ultimately what I call my head coach binder, where if I ever were to be a head coach or interview for a head coach, here's everything I have, right? Here's my book. Here's how I would approach this. Here's my drill book. Here's my positional stuff. Like, here's everything I have that I've collected over 16 years. And here's the system at which I execute it at, right? Here's the game plans. Here's all of those types of things are in that binder that I could pull out at any moment. And you're constantly working on that and tweaking your drill notebook. It's just a matter of taking it from like the old school way where we used to handwrite everything and do all of those things, making it now like, okay, now it's all on, a USB. It used to be a little USB that you had everything on it. And now, how do you formalize it? How do you structure that? How do you continue to evolve with that? And now it goes from USB to the cloud, or now it's at the touch of your finger that you have all of those things. I think that's part of your job too, is to develop that as you move forward, right? Like, and you got to be to me, if you want to be great, the detail at which you need to put things into it. And I think
I want you to see something that's interesting, right? Like
guys overlook a lot of those little things.
I typed this in the chat GPT. Okay. Develop me a practice plan for wide receivers that is needed for 2 15-minute segments that are key to getting better each day, a 4-day plan that includes all the skills to make them elite D1 player. Okay. Like, this is what like young guys are doing to help. Like, all right, here are the 4 days. Here's each segment, 1 and 2. Day 1.
Yep.
Here's your segment 1 drills. Here's your segment 2 drills. Day 2.
Now,
here's your and so it goes through each thing. Now, I'm not saying that it's perfect. It seems pretty good actually.
But here's my, like,
it's amazing.
Right. But let me now go and play like, devil's advocate by literally just going and making it that easy that could just spit it out to you and not have to go through the actual work to find all of that on your own or talk to other people that would tell you to do that. Does that cut you short in another facet? Because to me, one of the greatest things about this profession in terms of being a coach is the networking at which you meet other guys. And to me, it's all about like stealing all your stuff. You know what I mean? Like that's coming from ChatGPT, where I could have gotten all of that from talking to 10 coaches.
Right. So if you're able to shave time off of your development and get better quicker.
Right. But I'm saying, are you now being shorted by not talking to coaches because you just typed it in? To me, to me, it's like that's where you get shorted.
I think you need both. I think you need both.
If you could, I think that if you could have that level of balance, I think that's important.
I think you need to talk to people who know, right? Because they've done it. But you also need to, like, they're usually going to share with you 1 or 2 drills, right? Or 1 or 2, like say wide receiver. Here's what I like to do with my guys every day. Like, this is, this always helped me, and this always helped me. They're not, and if they were going to share with you their training plan,
which most guys will, because everything now is an open book.
ChatGPT pulls it from all the sources on the internet. So every guy has put a plan out there. Every guy, so it's pulling from sources. So it doesn't mean it's correct, 100% correct. You have to still look at it, but it can cut down your time to implement things. It can cut down your time, and then you can focus a lot of your time on, is this working or not? Like, is this what I'm doing? That's what you're going to see happening. So, like, what's going to happen is you're going to have the old coaches who know what to do, who are really good, who have the skill sets of all the years of knowledge. And then you're going to have a lot of younger guys that are going to come into the game that are going to develop knowledge very, very quickly, and then test that knowledge to see if it works, what they've been able to garner, and to see if they can accelerate more quickly in that process.
Absolutely.
Because look, if there's a benefit to it, if you can accelerate quickly, you could rise up the ladder faster in college, and if you can rise up the ladder faster, you get paid faster, right? Because you start out very low.
But is payment the ultimate goal?
I would say a lot of the college coaches, yes, 100%.
Yep. And you see, and that's where I have a serious issue. If you're chasing a paycheck, then I don't think you're in this for the right.
How many of these guys are going? If they weren't chasing the paycheck, they would stay at a place for more than 1 or 2 years in college.
Well, unless they're chasing a level.
No, I'm not talking about when they get fired. I'm just saying, but
I'm saying that, I'm saying if you're at one place and you really okay, but it's a Division III, and you ultimately don't want to be out of Division III, then you know what I mean?
You're chasing the paycheck because you're still chasing going to the highest level and chasing a level of.
But I'm saying
performance slash monetary. Performance slash monetary.
I would just because I want to move
level. You want to get
but it has nothing to do with money. I just want to coach different players.
I would say that about half your guys are that, and I would say most of them are a combination. Yes, they want to coach the highest level, but the highest level also gives you the most financial,
the monetary, right? But I also think with that comes a level of work that you now have to increase, right? So if you're not willing to do the work, then you know what I mean? I think it's just, obviously to me, the higher the level, the more work that has to be put in. And if you're not at the end of the day, if you're not a worker who's willing to literally put it all on the table and get after it every single day and consistently be at that level, then I don't stay in high school and wear a polo, right? Because you can see that, right? I think it's one of the first things that jumps out. Look, everybody hits the ground running the first 3 days, but the consistency of can you keep it dialed up like this at that level over a long period of time? That is where kind of what I think separates the good ones from the great ones.
Yeah, I believe coaching ability when they get actually into that process. But there's so much information that you could go and I wonder if you could garner all these things that are out there on YouTube and build something that filters them all into one system based off of this type of offense and this type of defense, instead of having to watch all these videos all the time and trying to figure it out. If I watch this guy right here and he has all these videos broken down and then he has certain things covered, then I got to watch this guy over there. I wonder if there was a system that could pull them all in to and then
be hey, I want to run
I mean, college
odd front, cover 3 in the back end, bam. And then you get
right now it's randomized. Clips. It's randomized. Right. You get it randomized. You get it algorithm based. Algorithm.
Now look, now every video that pops up on your feed is going to be 3-4 cover 3. You know what I mean? I think that's kind of how it works, right? Depending on what you're looking at or
I'd love to binge. Yeah, it's a good example. Let's say I think I'm going to run 3-4 cover 3. Okay. If I'm going to run that coverage and that defense, that base, I would love to be able to pull up every single way someone handles 3-4 cover 3 and how they play it.
Yeah.
And just binge that. You binge Netflix. I'd love to binge 100 clips of it because I think it would go into my brain and I'd be like, okay, this is what I'd like to do after watching 100 clips of it and seeing all the different kind of styles and ways they do it. But now you might watch this guy and be like, okay, seems pretty good. I think I like that. Then you got to go try to find another one like that.
Right. Whereas if you just had a software that could just give you all of it and say, here you go.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me see all of the versions of this right now. Exos does that at the college level. Cause I remember when I would go in to Rutgers when Nunzio was there.
Yep.
And he was the interim. I think he was the interim right there at Rutgers.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
When he was the
for
interim,
half a season, I think.
Yes. So I sat in and I went in there a few times, sat in with them. and they would pull stuff up from Exos, like,
Yep.
let me see all of this or let me see all of that, and they would filter it and
Right.
pull it
It's
up.
kind of like what Huddle can do within your own system, or what you
Within
have
your own
uploaded
system.
within your own system. Like, hey, I want to see every QB, every GH counter we ran
Right.
in the last 4 years. Boom.
Like, I'd
Right.
love if you could see everybody else's. That's the thing that would be so awesome.
That would be sick.
That would, like, you know, what was the coolest thing? I don't know if they do it in the Shore yet, but the greatest thing about the Super Conference,
Probably
they
not.
don't. They don't.
Yeah. When they did the pool,
Everyone could see everybody's shit.
everybody could see everybody's shit. I think they do something like that, but like, no offense. Like,
Shore does it or no?
I think they do a little bit of it.
I like that was the greatest.
Yeah, because if like, hey, or like you could go and grab, okay, this team played them well. Like, let me go get that film if I don't have it. Or hey, I'd like to do a little bit more of this. Well, who runs that? Okay, I can go pull tape from that, right?
That was awesome. I was like, I mean,
yeah, kid in a candy store, brother.
Oh, dude, the guys.
But I mean, you're also talking us who are like literally football junkies, whereas some of these coaches don't even know how to watch film, like, or don't even know how to break it down, right? Or
that can't be. Guys don't know how to watch film still. Like,
dude, you want to talk, bro? Because look, you just said it. High school coaches, to get good ones is really hard. Yeah. I'm talking like assistants. I'm not talking head coaches. Like, I'm sure you always have a group of like your head coach, and probably I'm sure that there's like two guys on the staff, right? Like, I would say on average there's 3 to 4 coaches on a staff that could really be high level guys. The rest, I think you're just placeholders, and maybe you're a good guy, or, you know, shit. Like, maybe you could teach, like maybe you're the way you could take something and go there. But like, most of these guys just want to show up, stand on the sideline with a polo Friday night, look like they're important, right? Like, you know, they want to wear a headset so they can tell somebody, you know, they want to, like, we talked about it the other day. Like, the status, I think, is what a lot of people love about this game, not the nitty gritty of what really goes into it. They love what football can do for you, or how it makes you look when you're associated with it. I don't think a lot of guys are purists when it comes to that stuff. I mean, that's just how I feel. That's me personally.
Yeah,
I really don't. And that goes, and I think coaches are just as guilty of it as players, right? Because coaches love to have their egos stroked and all those other kind of things, but the best coaches can ignore that guy that's telling you suck at whatever play you just called. Like, and I get it. That's hard to fucking do when they don't see the amount of time and the hours and what goes into really being, just winning a game, dude. Like, if there's one thing I've learned in 16 years of coaching, it's that winning is not the normal. And that was a huge adjustment for me, coming from the programs that I played for and where I grew up, because winning was the norm. Like, that's what was expected. And to go to places where winning was not the expectation, or above average winning was not the expectation, it took a lot of time. And look, I'm still not okay with losing, but I understand why it happens more than winning does, because it's really, really hard to win any game at any level and then consistently do it. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's why now I savor wins so much more, and I savor high level players, because you don't get them all the time. You know, I think it's why I still do a lot of the stuff that we do in terms of that, because I enjoy being around really, really high level players, but it's definitely, you don't get them all the time, especially in a public school setting. Like, you get what you get. And if you don't just take that and develop it, then you're not going to be very good, or you're not going to have a product where guys are going to want to stay. They're going to want to leave, because that's it is now, man. Like, and it's not good, bad, and different. I have my opinions on it. I understand it. I think it would be very interesting. Like, if I took my high school self and put myself in high school right now, how would I handle this process or go through it or whatnot? Because I think it's extremely interesting. Same for you, right? Like, highest of the high level athlete with opportunities to go all over the place and do things, right? Like you might have left UConn and had an opportunity to go somewhere else and make money and really be like the focal point of something. You know what I mean? Like, or maybe you go and maybe you take a track route rather than a football route. Like, who knows, right? Because the opportunities within certain things are just different now.
I never thought I was talented enough to in track to
Really?
Yeah, so I would have been a decathlete where and I had very good jumping ability, but I didn't have like I wasn't like
Do you think you could have developed that?
the only reason I know that it would have been hard is because when I was in my mid-20s, I went and did a couple of decathlons. Like I trained, I scored 6,400 and within a year. I probably would have been on pace. I was figuring out the math, like what could I cap out. Now I was older, so I still had some knee issues at that point. Maybe I mean, but I ran a 10,900 still. But I was I figured my cap was somewhere around between 7,500 and 8,000 if I hit it right. Like if I nailed it, you know what I'm saying? That would be my cap. If like I PR'd and everything in over the 2 days and I trained for maybe another year or so, I figured I could probably get to there. But that wasn't going to be enough. Track, it's not enough it's really not enough. Like because you got to be if you're not like I could have maybe gotten to the point where I could qualify for the Olympic trials, but I wasn't gonna finish in the top 3 to make it to the Olympics. You know what I mean?
Correct.
So it's so cutthroat from that level. Like I wasn't that level of athleticism. I would say I was like there's elite level athleticism, like you say, like a Tyreek Hill, like guys who could do freakish things. I was below that. Like I was below that level. I was a very, very good athlete and I could do a lot of things, but I was not that fat. Like when you tell someone you can run 10.9, yeah, that's fast, but that's not, you know what I'm saying?
Elite
it's really
fast. It's not elite fast. I do feel this way
like,
too.
there's a difference.
Absolutely. But I do feel this way, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts on
Football,
it too.
you can
Like,
get away with being that.
do
You're actually
you?
fast in football.
I feel like personally, and this is not a knock on anything, right? Which usually when you preface that, it's going to be taken as a knock. If I had gone or I was surrounded by better players throughout my career, I would have been better. Like, you know what I'm saying in that regards? Like, because we were
I was
the
in a
best of
different
the
era.
best.
That wasn't possible, really. I could have went to Bergen Catholic or St. Joe's.
That's what I mean.
Been around
That's what
better guys.
that's what
I
I'm
don't
kind
know
of
that
referencing.
knowledge-wise, I would have had. The 90s were.
But that's what I'm referencing. So if you went to Bergen Catholic in the 90s, Dave, you still like you could have gone somewhere better than UConn, no matter what. I'll stand on that no matter what. Just like if I had gone to say Del Barton, like I wouldn't have been at Sacred Heart. I'd have been at a bigger school.
I probably would have been if I went to St. Joe's. Like I told you that story where my father didn't tell me till about 2 years ago that St. Joe's. By the way, your dad, you have a dad, obviously have a dad. And
listen, when my
dads
parents
are funny, huh? Are they funny or what?
I remember sitting
like doesn't tell me for 60. I'm 50.
Dave, I remember
tell me for 30 years.
I remember sitting in my kitchen, right after I had randomly asked to go to Del Barton camp, and my parents said yes, and I don't know how they like put together the money for me to go to like their summer camp as an 8th grader, but I can remember like the ride home and having that conversation of, hey, these guys really liked what you did and they want you to come to school there. And I don't know how we would make it work, but if that's like something you would want to do, well, like, let's go through the process and we'll figure it out. Right.
Right.
So like, I remember taking the placement test. I remember like doing all of that. And then ultimately it was, hey, this is your decision because it's your life. If you would like to do this, then we will support you 100%. Now, I'm sure the two of them, I'm sure my mom and dad were sitting there going, how the fuck are we going to come up with $32,000 a year for you to go to school at Del Barton? I mean, we're talking, this is 2000, right? Like, holy shit. Right. But the fact that like, it was like, you know, like, oh my God, that to me is in itself a decision that I don't regret the choice that I made. Yeah, but when you look at it, it's like, shit, life would have been a lot different had I been surrounded by those dudes. You know what I mean? And
now, the one thing
no, go ahead.
No, I said the one thing that
I would have been in green.
I think what you're saying is true. Different. Like I think what you're saying is,
and maybe that's only because like we're Group 1 guys. You know what I'm saying?
I do think the one thing that doesn't change is that my dog is driving me nuts. The one thing that doesn't change,
put him in the microwave,
I would say is at the highest level. Like, would they have deemed still, no matter even if it went to St. Joe's, was a star there, let's say went to, I don't know, BC or somebody like a little bit higher level.
Oh, look at you going BC. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
I mean, I wouldn't have known much other than, you know, like
Syracuse. Let's say you went to Syracuse.
Yeah, Syracuse. Like, I didn't know. Like, I knew about West Coast schools because I
that wasn't like a thing for me. I never thought about that. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, I would have enjoyed it if I got recruited there, but
I think it was different then because we didn't have the access to understand that, or we didn't even see those teams on TV, right? Like, or any of that stuff, because there's just a wider span of everything now.
So I did get recruited by, I mean, there's no doubt it was like at least 75, 80 colleges at the Division I and FCS level. And like, because I remember I used to get all the letters. I remember eventually my mother we threw it all away because we were like, what are we going to do with all this stuff? But
remember coming home and just those letters just spread out, like, dude, those were the best.
They were great. I used to love that.
Even myself,
these were not,
that wasn't
nowadays. These were not formal typewritten letters. Like, I would like
you couldn't and it was hard to, and a lot of them were hard to read. They were hard to read, bro. College coaches' penmanship sucks.
It was. I love that era, but I thought that was great. You really felt good.
Nothing better than a handwritten note. And the best I used to love.
And the coaches would all come in. They would all. Absolutely. Every coach came in to see me. Like I remember when
those things were fucking awesome.
That was great. Like,
that's what I think these kids don't. Like, that's what I think they're missing. To them, it's like, what is this? Like why?
Vanderbilt came to see me. Cal came to see me.
They almost look at it like it's a. They almost look at like, why would I get a handwritten letter?
I met all those coaches. Stanford. I met all. So it was. I was like, you know, I would say that today's era, I would have been I would not have been the highest level. I would have been I would still be the same level. What UConn is now, right? They're a Group of 5 school. That's what I would have been today. But you're right about you. Maybe you could have gone a little bit higher level. The only thing I don't like, if I think about it, like the one thing you can't change is your kind of genetics. Your genetics, right? So my genetics.
I blame my parents every day. I'm like, thanks, guys. 5'8", short, stubby.
My level of stop for me may have been where I was. I worked out for NFL teams. I could have went to the CFL. I could have went to arena ball. I happen to have an MBA, so I was like, you know what? If I'm going to make $40,000, I'm going to make it.
You made that.
I'm going to make it working, right? So. Right. But I didn't get picked up by an NFL team. You know, I know what it's like to have an agent and all that stuff. But it was but that may have been my cap anyway. You know what I'm saying? Like, no matter if I went at a higher level, even if I started there and was a star, maybe that was my cap anyway. I don't know. You know,
I knew that playing wasn't going to be the end all be all for me. I wanted to play football for as long as I could and then use football after the fact, in terms of, okay, I'm at the highest level I can play at. Now I'm going to GA for 2 years, and then I'm going to attach myself to these coaches that I believe in what they are or who they are or how they are, and I'm going to follow them. Hopefully I create an impression that they want to take me when they take that next job. That was my entire philosophy going into it. It's why I chose Sacred Heart. It's why all that. And then life throws you curveballs, bro, and you have to make decisions ultimately for, you know, what it's going to be. But I knew I wasn't going to be. I was just happy that I was getting the opportunity to play at that time, 1AA non-scholarship school, right? I wasn't salty about not getting a scholarship full. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I understood it. And I think that might be why it's hard for me to not understand why kids don't understand nowadays. Like, how do you not realize what level you really are when you're going against these other guys or nobody's talking to you? Or I understand I can get there mindset, because I still had that too. Like, I could play there if I wanted to, but the realization of understanding, like, I want to go somewhere where I'm going to play, right? Like, because you have that long, I knew my time was numbered. Like, I never thought about reclassing, even though it wasn't like a thing, but like, I never thought about doing a 5th year at Hun or any of those types of things. Like, I wasn't going to do that. I didn't want to go somewhere where I was going to red shirt. Like, why would I do all of that just to say, hey, I play at this level? Like, I was comfortable in what I did. The only thing that bothers me about my entire career process, all that thing, there's 2 things. One is that I never won a state championship. I lost in the finals, and that drives me insane till this very day. And then the second thing is that in college, I never had the title of captain. And I understand why. I'm not salty about it, but it bothers me because I always thought I was a pretty good captain in terms of, you know, locker room guy.
In college, you're talking about? Yeah.
In college, that was, and I like, look, I get it. Had I gone to Montclair State from the jump, I'd have been a captain. You know what I mean? Like, some of that is back and forth. And yeah, you're game day captain, or you're, you know, hey man, you're really the captain of this team, but like, you don't have the title and all that kind of shit. I get it, right? Because I do the same thing with my players. But the fact that, like, in the history books at Montclair State, they say captains for the 2007 team, like, my name's not on it, and that bothers me a little bit because, like, just bothers me personally. I don't have, you know, contention with anybody. I just always thought that, like, that to me was the ultimate goal, honestly, of being part of a team, because I loved that team concept. I loved the locker room. I loved the ability to talk to every position group and be cool with every position group, and everybody knew, like, you know how college is, dude. If you play offense, you don't know the defense. If you play defense, you don't know the offense. Like, I knew everybody. We were all cool. Like, that's one of those things. But see, like, I don't think guys would even bring that up or even talk about that nowadays. Like, that's not like a goal. It's like, how much money can I make? I really would have didn't give a shit. Like, wait, you're going to pay me to do this? You're going to give me something? Like, wow. Okay. Thank you. You know, I was happy when Sacred Heart was like, hey man, you got a 3.6 GPA. Here's extra money. I'm like, oh shit. Thanks, dude. Like, let's go. Now I'm just going to work even harder. Like, okay.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's definitely,
and everybody has their own, I guess, fuel that fires them, you know.
I remember when Hargroves told me, he's like, hey, you would have been captain if you didn't have a year where you had to sit out an injury. And I just knew that meant that the players voted me captain, and for some reason the coaches were doing something different, and I didn't really.
Well, politics, you know what I mean? And look, I understood that through the whole. I understood that the whole politics thing.
There's a politics aspect. Yeah.
Right. And I understood all that shit, like, from a very young age, right? Because look, I was never going to be.
I just was like,
I just like, hey, that's kind of part of it. And I think it's the way I was raised too, because my parents were always like, look, there are going to be some things that are out of your control in life, and you just kind of got to roll with them, and you can't play the blame game or be, soft about it or allow it to affect you to a level where it's going to bring you down. You just kind of take it in stride, move along, and kind of go with it. I just think it's what it is. You know what I mean? I think that's hard because like those were the conversations when I got in the car after a game. Whereas now I think a lot of those conversations when these kids get in a car is, well, your coach doesn't know what he's doing, or it just it's negative mindset shit that's being pumped to these kids, and they are the way they are. Because look, if you're hearing that on the ride home, at the dinner table, in the living room, if it's constant, you're going to believe it, right? Like, you should be getting more touches. They should be doing this. How about like, just tell your kids to align with what's going on. And even if they don't like it, like shit's going to happen. So it is what it is. It's just different.
You're 100% right. I mean, it's a different era, which I don't
like being that old guy that's like, back in my, I don't like that shit. I don't want to be that shit. Look, it is what it is. We're in it. I'm here. At the end of the day, it's all still the same focus. We all want to win, and I want to freaking get you to be the best player you can possibly be. And we're not comparing to anything else, right? Like guys now, like, for example, like maxes, right? Like we do maxes at the end of this like whole thing, right? Guys' numbers are incredible, right? But when they start comparing the end all to others, well, I'm not this, I'm not that, I'm not. Well, there's so many factors. Look at where you started and where you went to, because his max number might be more than yours, but he didn't move from where you did. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think social media, if there's one thing, it's the ability that everybody now sees everything and they can compare, right? And those comparisons sometimes can crush people. It's like, dude, the 40 times you're looking at are guys going to the NFL. You're a sophomore in high school. Like, we're in a different year, dude. Like, you liked my reference yesterday. We're talking Harry Potter, bro.
Yeah. I like.
All right, man. Yeah, I'm sure he loves Harry Potter.
That came out of nowhere. I likes Harry Potter. He only because his friends. He's it's about what you're surrounded with, dude. He didn't know much about it. We don't watch it, so he didn't know much.
Look, and the books. Good luck, bud. Holy shit.
I think they might have read, maybe in school, maybe they read one.
No, I'm already like the fact that we have a high school class that's Harry Potter. The only reason I can swallow that pill is because the teacher's daughter is one of my better flag players. So that's why I swallowed it. But
there you go.
It is what it is. If she comes out wearing a fucking cape and a wand, I got problems. Like,
if she catches the ball better, you don't care.
As long as she continues to do what she does for the next 3 years, and we'll be out of here on a scholarship. My first girl to have a scholarship for flag. Like, I'll freaking wear a cape and a wand myself.
No doubt about it. All right, man. Great episode. And
I think we're back. We may be back on Monday. No, Tuesday we have Shanae Howard, so that should be really good.
That'll be great. Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
And then Wednesday we have Anthony Van Kuren, the head coach at FDU.
Oh, that's good.
Florham Park. And then Thursday we have former Rutgers player Kevin Mallist coming on, buddy.
The defensive lineman, right?
Yes, sir. Maybe a linebacker. He might have been a linebacker, but he's doing some I want to say he's in like the NIL world player type development kind of gig, but still linked back to Rutgers a little bit. So look, I know
everybody's involved in the world now,
but I'm saying, and look,
what it tells me? There's a lot of money involved now.
But I like bringing some of these guys on to kind of sift through what it is, because that's what, like you said, everybody is this now. So like to bring these guys on and for you to hammer away with like these questions that, because we know kind of like what it is.
He handled them pretty well, I thought. He handled them pretty well.
I think I think, like you said, like everybody's gonna have their own whatever. If he's got a niche, I think he wants to really like hammer down and continue to do what
I
he's
think you
doing
should just double down on that software.
on that
Nick.
software, dude. Like, can
And
you copyright that? Because
I asked him if he had
copyright
other
that,
services. I was actually
think
hoping he would say he doesn't, because I think if he hammers down in that niche, you'll get a
he'd
lot
be
of
able to sell that
sign
off
up.
to somebody else, dude. Imagine
Yeah,
if he got everybody to like. Imagine if all of a sudden like that became the software that you needed.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, you could get 10,000 people on that.
100%.
Right, and it's working for people, and you don't need to do the other stuff. Like, as long as it's working for
See,
people.
I think that's same with coaches. Everybody tries to do too much, dude. Keep it simple. Be really good at what you do. Find you whatever helps you, and then you're good.
So he's probably at a point. My
Right.
guess, he's trying to figure out will it make him enough money if
Correct.
he doesn't do other
Right.
things. But I feel like if he makes the software,
I
don't
hope he
know
stays in it, man.
if he knows how to make the software as good as possible. And I don't know, he may not, you know what I'm saying? But if he does,
Then he's good.
there's something there to that. And
Hell yeah.
there's a value to that mass reach out.
Absolutely.
You're just trying to get, like, you want to start to get the
in nowadays age. I think
Plus
everybody is
rolling.
looking. You're just by, but you talk about it all the time, right? Like, for example, like invites to camps, dude. You got to invite 1,000 kids to get 50, right?
Right.
So the mass that literally you could probably plug in there and send that based off, hey, this is going to get sent to every Division II school in the country. This is going to get sent to every NAIA in the country, right? And like, to create that, now you can sift through and kind of, okay, where was the responses that we got back? You know, that's, I think, something that he can kind of take a next step with.
No doubt.
All right, man. Talk to you later.
Bye.